Boyle believed that the universe was made up of tiny particles, which he called corpuscles. He even suggested that ghosts might be made up of them.
The most essential point of happiness is the conviction that we are loved. The surest way to make a monkey of a man is to quote him. The greatest evil is the lack of knowledge. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. The world is a large and various laboratory, and nature is the experimenter in it. The only way to be perfectly safe is to risk something. The best way to have a good idea is to have a lot of ideas. The best way to find out what we really need is to get rid of what we don't. The most violent passions of the soul are not those which the least master our reason.
Boyle was a member of the Royal Society, a prestigious scientific organization in England, and corresponded with many of the leading scientists of his day.
It is a happiness to wonder, it is a happiness to imagine. The chief use of money is to provide for the necessities of life. Knowledge is power, and it is often more powerful when it is shared. The greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do. It is a great error to think that the increase of knowledge must necessarily be the increase of error. The best way to keep your friends is not to give them away. The greatest part of our wisdom consists in knowing what to overlook. The greatest part of our knowledge is knowing where to find it. The whole world is a laboratory to the inquiring mind.
He was a passionate advocate for the scientific method and believed that careful observation and experimentation were essential for understanding the natural world.
The great cause of most of man's errors is in his judgment, not in his inclination. The most valuable of all talents is that of never using two words when one will do. The greatest good we can do for others is not to share our wealth, but to reveal to them their own. The greatest thing a man can do is to make the most of what he has. A wise man never loses anything if he has himself. The only way to have a good future is to build it today. The only way to make sure of learning something is to try to teach it. The only way to be perfect is to admit our imperfections. The only way to be successful is to be willing to fail.
He once wrote a letter to a friend in code but forgot to include the key.
The man who is wise enough to yield to circumstances will find that he has no need of force. The world is a curious looking-glass, and, as in all other looking-glasses, gives back to every man the reflection of his own face. A man can no more hinder the course of nature than he can stop the sun from setting. The best way to make an enemy is to make a friend. The only way to have a friend is to be one. The greatest part of man's misery arises from his inability to sit still in one place. The most valuable thing we can do for the world is to make it a better place. The greatest mistake a man can make is to be afraid of making one. Experience is the best teacher, but a fool will learn from no other.
He was a devout Christian who believed that studying the natural world was a way of understanding God's creation.
A man ought to be a little mad if he does not want to be even more miserable. The only way to make a man trustworthy is to trust him. A wise man never knows all, only fools know everything. Truth is the daughter of time, not of authority. The best way to get what you want is to help others get what they want. One man's style may be better than another's, but that does not make it right. The work of the mind is what I value most in life. The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page. The greatest minds are capable of the greatest vices, as well as of the greatest virtues.
Boyle's work on the properties of gases laid the foundation for many important discoveries in chemistry and physics.
The knowledge of nature is only to be acquired by observation and experiment. The greatest happiness of life is the conviction that we are loved. The greatest use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it. No man is wise enough by himself. The best way to make a man wise is to begin with children. The mind is the source of all knowledge and all power. The greatest part of our happiness depends on our dispositions, not our circumstances.